90 days ago, I opened a spreadsheet and made myself a promise. Every single dollar that left my life, I was going to write it down. Not estimate it, not round it. Write down the exact number, the exact time, the exact reason. I didn't do this because I thought I had a spending problem. I did it because I was tired of feeling vaguely uneasy every time I checked my bank account and couldn't explain why the number was smaller than it should have been. I want to tell you what I found, because it wasn't what I expected, and by the end of this video, you're going to know a number about your own life that you've probably never calculated. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. Let me set the scene. I'm not extreme with money. I don't eat ramen for dinner 5 nights a week. I don't feel guilty buying a coffee. On paper, I looked like someone who was doing fine. Steady job, no credit card debt, a little bit going into savings most months when I remembered to move it. If you'd asked me before this experiment how much I spent on convenience every month, I would have guessed somewhere around $200, maybe $250 on a bad month. I was wrong by a number so large it embarrassed me to write down. Day 1 felt almost silly. I logged a coffee. I logged a parking fee. I logged $4 for a granola bar I bought because I forgot to eat breakfast. Small stuff, the kind of spending that doesn't even register as spending, because it happens in the gaps of your day, not in the moments where you're consciously making a decision. By week 2, a pattern started to surface that I hadn't noticed before, mostly because I'd never had to look at it laid out in a single column. It wasn't the big purchases draining me. It was never the big purchases. It was the constant stream of small ones, each one too small to feel worth questioning in the moment, but each one adding up in a way my brain simply wasn't built to track in real time. Here's the thing about the human brain and money. We're wired to notice threats that arrive all at once. A $500 car repair feels like an event. It triggers alarm. You remember it. You talk about it. But a $6 charge that happens 40 times a month doesn't trigger anything. It's invisible by design, not because anyone's hiding it from you, but because your own attention simply isn't built to catch it. So I kept going. Week 3, I noticed something strange. I was spending more on convenience during the weeks I felt most tired and most stressed. Not slightly more, almost double. On the weeks where work was heavy or I hadn't slept well, my spending on food delivery, ride shares, and impulse purchases spiked in a way that had nothing to do with my actual needs and everything to do with my emotional state in that moment. I want you to sit with that for a second, because it's not really a money problem, it's an energy problem wearing a money costume. When you're depleted, decision-making gets expensive, and the easiest decisions to make are usually the ones with a price tag attached. Order the food instead of cooking. Take the ride instead of walking. Buy the thing instead of solving the problem yourself. Every one of those choices makes sense individually. Stacked together over 90 days, they told a completely different story. By day 45, halfway through, I stopped guessing what my number would be. I genuinely had no idea anymore. The categories were bleeding into each other in ways I hadn't anticipated. Subscriptions I'd forgotten I had, a streaming service I hadn't opened in 4 months, a membership I signed up for during a 2-week burst of motivation 8 months ago and never touched again. None of these felt like decisions when they happened. They felt like nothing. That's what makes them dangerous. A $500 mistake announces itself. A $9 mistake, repeated 52 times a year, never does. Somewhere around day 60, I noticed the second pattern, and this one actually changed how I think about money permanently. I started separating every expense into 2 categories, not needed versus wanted, but remembered versus forgotten. Would I remember this purchase existed a week from now? Most things failed that test. The lunch I barely tasted because I was scrolling my phone while eating it. The impulse order that arrived and sat in a bag for 3 days before I opened it. The subscription box I'd stopped looking forward to months ago, but never canceled, because canceling required 4 clicks, and I always meant to do it later. None of it was memorable. All of it was expensive. By day 90, I closed the spreadsheet and did the math I'd been avoiding the entire time. I didn't look at the total until the very end on purpose, because I didn't want a running number influencing my behavior mid-experiment. I wanted the real, unfiltered version of how I actually live, not the version of myself that shows up when I know I'm being watched. The number sitting at the bottom of that spreadsheet was $11,400, not on rent, not on anything essential. $11,400 over 90 days on convenience, forgettable purchases, and subscriptions I wasn't using. Annualized, that's a pace of over $45,000 a year, more than some people's entire take-home salary, disappearing through a door so small I never noticed it was open. I sat with that number for a long time, not because I felt ashamed of it, but because I realized something uncomfortable. I hadn't made a single decision to spend $45,000 a year on convenience. Nobody makes that decision. What actually happens is you make about 600 tiny decisions, and none of them individually feel like anything. And by the time you add them up, you're staring at a number that looks like it belongs to someone reckless, even though every single choice along the way felt completely reasonable in isolation. That's the part nobody warns you about. It's never one bad decision that costs you. It's never the vacation or the car or the big purchase you agonized over and still remember clearly. Those decisions get scrutiny. They get thought. The dangerous spending is the spending that never asks permission because it's too small to feel worth questioning. And by the time it's big enough to notice, it's already been happening for years. Here's what I actually did with that information, because a number by itself doesn't change anything. Awareness without action is just an expensive form of self-punishment. First, I didn't try to eliminate everything. That's the mistake most people make once they see a number like this. They swing to the opposite extreme, cut everything overnight, feel deprived within 2 weeks, and abandon the whole thing. Instead, I picked the 3 categories that scored lowest on the remembered versus forgotten test. The subscriptions I wasn't using, the delivery habit tied to stress rather than hunger, and the impulse purchases that arrived and sat untouched. Those 3 categories alone accounted for almost 60% of the total. Second, I built in a delay, not a ban. Anything outside of groceries and bills now waits 24 hours before I buy it. Not because I don't trust myself completely, but because I learned that most of my convenience spending wasn't really about the item. It was about needing relief from whatever I was feeling in that exact moment. Give that feeling a day to pass, and most of the desire passes with it. Third, I stopped tracking every dollar forever, because that's not sustainable, and I never intended it to be. Instead, I do 1 week every quarter. Just 7 days, fully logged, no exceptions. It's enough to catch new habits before they quietly become expensive ones, without turning my entire life into an accounting exercise. The strange part is what happened after. I didn't feel restricted. If anything, I felt lighter because I wasn't carrying around that vague, low-grade anxiety anymore, the one where you check your account and can't explain where the money went. I could explain it now. Every dollar had a name and a reason, and most of the ones that used to disappear silently simply stopped happening. Not because I was gritting my teeth and resisting temptation, but because I could finally see them coming. If you did this same experiment on your own life right now, today, I'd bet the number waiting for you at the end isn't the one you're expecting either. It's very rarely the big purchase that gets people. It's the 600 small ones nobody ever bothers to count. You don't need 90 days to find out. Start with 7. Write down every dollar, no exceptions, no rounding, no skipping the small stuff, especially the small stuff. At the end of the week, don't judge it yet. Just look at it. The judgment isn't the point. The visibility is. Because the truth is, most of us aren't bad with money. We're just blind to it in very specific, very consistent places. And the moment you turn the lights on in that room, you can't go back to pretending it's empty.